In this series of Healthy Ireland at Your Library videos, viewers are encouraged to develop a positive approach to caring for your mental health. Created by and courtesy of the HSE, all content is based on evidence and research around the areas of wellbeing and positive psychology. Over 8 episodes, we'll provide hints, tips and guidance on how to care for your mental health every day. We're all aware of increasing levels of anxiety and depression. This series gives us the tips to flourish and thrive. It encourages us to discover and appreciate our strengths so we can use them to enjoy life and to look forward to the future. We are thinking beings. We have on average 70,000 thoughts a day. We take our busy minds for granted, but it's so important that we understand our thinking habits and patterns. Our thoughts are intrinsic to our well-being and how we see ourselves. So how do we make them work better for us to create more positive mental health? Can we change the way we think, and what does that involve? Theresa McElhinney of the HSE answers these and many more questions.
Why are our thoughts important? Well, the impact on our feelings, on our behaviours, and generally how we act in the world and relate to other people, and the way we view ourselves. 95% of the thoughts that we had yesterday we'll have today and probably tomorrow as well. So very similar thoughts day in, day out. Things like, it's time to get up, or I forgot to buy milk, or I think I'm hungry, it's time for dinner. So all of these things we think most days and we're not even aware of doing it. So we have thinking habits and patterns that mean a lot of our thoughts are quite similar. Let's look at what we know about thinking. For instance, did you know you have about 70,000 thoughts a day? So that's a lot of thinking, isn't it? Imagine all of those thoughts coming in and going out of your head. Makes for a very busy mind, doesn't it? Some of those thoughts might be worries or ruminating thoughts where we go over and over things that we can't change, or we're worrying about the future, things that haven't happened yet. That can take up a lot of our time. And if we think that about 95% of the thoughts that we had yesterday, we have today, we're going to have tomorrow, it is important to notice what kind of thoughts are coming into our heads, because we're naturally wired towards what we call a negative bias. This means that a lot of the time we're looking out for threats or for things to go wrong. And if we are kind of prone to worry, and some of us are, that negative bias really does take hold. But the important thing is we can change the way that we think. And what we want to do is change the way we think to increase more positive thoughts in our minds, to try and balance out the negative. Not to say that they're not there, but to try and be realistic about what we're thinking, what's likely and what's not likely. There's a nice balance maybe of 3 positive thoughts to a negative thought. So that's what we'll be trying to aim for. It's important to remember that thoughts aren't always facts. We might believe they are, but we have imaginations and we can create any kind of idea in our head, but it doesn't make it true. We do develop what we call thinking habits and thinking patterns. So it's important to notice what your habits and patterns are when it comes to thinking. Are they more positive? Are they veering more towards the negative? So during this session, we'll be looking at ways that you can improve your positive thinking and try and balance out your negative thinking. Our thoughts are really powerful. They can take us anywhere. We can imagine places that we've never been to. We can imagine things that haven't happened yet, or may not even happen. We can also go right back, maybe to our childhood, and remember events and experiences that we had so vividly. Our thoughts are really powerful, so it is important for us to be able to manage them to work with us. And this is particularly important when it comes to what we call the negativity bias. Let's talk about the negativity bias. What is it? Well, what it is, it's a natural tendency towards negative thinking. And this means that we're primed to look out for threats and dangers to our very well-being. It's coming from a time where our ancestors had to be aware of dangers and looking out for threats to their very survival. And we have inherited that now as part of our makeup. So we have a tendency towards negative thinking. Depending on your personality and your general outlook, sometimes it can be quite difficult to talk your way out of those kind of things. And a lot of the time it depends on how we see things. How we personally see a situation or view ourselves or others will determine how we respond to it or feel about it. And this is usually because we have certain beliefs about ourselves or about other people or life in general. Maybe we don't take the time to question that view. We might have always seen things the same way, and maybe it was true at one time, perhaps when we were a child, but that doesn't mean it's still true. We mightn't notice that there's anything to contradict it this time because we aren't looking. And that can happen with our thoughts as well. If we're looking at things in one particular way, we often ignore or don't even notice other things that might contradict that thought. And when it comes to negative thinking, that's really, really important because we miss out things that mean that the negative thought really does take hold because there's nothing to tell us that it's not true. This is when we're most likely to fall into what we call thinking traps. Now, thinking traps are like a shortcut thinking, and we need these shortcuts because we're taking in so much information every day. Our brains are so busy, we can't possibly analyze every single detail. These are some of the most common thinking traps. Jump into conclusions. We believe we know how something will turn out or what someone means before we have even the whole story or picture, and we usually assume it's negative. Catastrophizing. This is when we jump ahead to the worst case scenario. For example, if I can't finish that project in time, I could lose my job, and then I couldn't pay my rent, and then I'd be kicked out of my flat. This creates stress and fear before anything has happened at all. What about generalizing? I always mess up, or that never works. This kind of talk happens when we generalize, we don't see new situations individually. We make assumptions based on something that might have happened before. Another thinking trap is emotional reasoning. And this is when our emotions seem to just take over and our logical brain, the common sense brain, shuts down. Maybe you're prone to mind reading. That's another thinking trap, where you think you know exactly what somebody is thinking when they haven't even opened their mouth or told you what they were going to say. One that can be very common is where we ignore the positive or not able to accept a compliment when someone says we do something well. A lot of the time someone may say, "Oh, that was a really good presentation." And then you say, "But I messed up on the last piece of it." So that would be ignoring the positive and minimizing what you do well. These are very common thinking traps, and we all fall into them from time to time. Take a minute or two just to think about any thinking trap that might have affected you from time to time. Which ones are most likely to happen? And when do they happen? What are the situations where you're most likely to fall into a thinking trap? So I'm going to talk about how you can avoid them or get out of them if they do happen. There's 4 steps to this process. So notice, pause, question, and reflect. And I'm going to go through each of those steps now in turn. The first step is notice. So notice when you're most likely to fall into the thinking trap you had in mind. What's happening at the time? What are you thinking? What are you doing? And how do you respond in that moment? And the second step is pause. And pause is a very useful tool to have. You can use it in this situation, but there's also other situations where pause is very effective. But for now, when we're talking about thinking traps, try to catch yourself in the moment when you're falling into that thinking trap. Just take a breath. You may even have something that you would say to yourself, like, "Hang on, there I go again." Just something that will actually get you to stop and stall your thinking in that moment. The third step is to question. Question what you're basing this view on. Question what evidence you're using that makes you think this way. And question this fixed view. Why are you looking at it in that particular way? Are you missing anything? Is there anything else that could be considered? Question what is actually true and what might be based on worry or fear. The fourth step is to reflect. So to reflect on what we might have noticed and realised, which might challenge this thinking trap. This process is very much about noticing and slowing down our thinking and challenging those negative thoughts. One very powerful way of supporting that is by being more mindful. You've probably heard of the word mindfulness, and there's a lot of evidence around the benefit of it. Let's look at what it is. And this is what is described as by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who would be one of the main leaders in mindfulness. And he would say that it is about paying attention on purpose in the present moment. And that really does just mean tuning into what we're doing when we're doing it. Whatever that is. It could be eating, it could be talking with a friend, having a walk, just any daily activity where we focus in on what we're doing when we do it. So mindfulness really is about tuning our thoughts into the here and now, what's going on when it's going on. It helps us value and notice the moment. And the benefit of this is that it reduces our stress because it stops us running ahead to the future or ruminating over the past. There are many other benefits to mindfulness. It can help us to accept situations that we can't change, but maybe change our responses to them. It can help us feel more connected to others and improve our relationships. It also can make us feel more calm and less anxious, and that means we will get better sleep, we're able to rest and relax more easily. So you can see why it can also help reduce stress, because it encourages us to stay in the present. I'd like to invite you to take part in a short mindfulness meditation. I'll talk you through it, so if you'd like to get comfortable, and we'll begin. This mindful practice is based on your 5 senses. Before we begin, get yourself comfortable, feel yourself supported by the chair, your feet comfortably on the floor, and you're just here. Close your eyes if you wish, and notice your breathing. Don't change it, just notice the breath coming in and going out. Guide your focus to your feet. Feel your feet against your shoes. Just gently move your toes a few times. Rub them against your shoes. And notice that feeling. Just stay with your awareness of that feeling. And if your thoughts wander, that's okay. Just bring them back to your feet and the sensations you can feel. Now bringing your attention back to your breath, gently in and out. Can you hear your breath? Listen carefully and notice. What else can you hear? Any other sound in the room? A sound outside the room? Just listen. If your thoughts wander, just bring them back to the sounds you can hear. No wondering or worry. Just listening to the sounds and keeping your focus here. Without moving your head or looking around, just open your eyes if they're closed. And what do you see? What shapes and colours? Can you see part of your own body? Just look closely and really notice what you're seeing. And if your thoughts wander, bring them back to what you see. Bring your attention now back to your breath and close your eyes again if that's comfortable. And bringing your attention to your breath, going gently in and out. Breathe in through your nose. Can you smell anything? Notice your breath in your nose. Your breath going in through your nostrils. And any smell that you experience. If your mind wanders, just bring it back to your breath, gently in through your nose and out through your mouth. Keeping the focus on your breath, bring your attention to your mouth. Feel the weight of your tongue in your mouth. Notice how your lips feel. Are they open or closed? Just notice any sensation in your mouth. And if your mind wanders, just bring it back to the sensations you can feel in your mouth. Bring your attention back to your breath, gently in and out, and become aware again of your body in the chair, your feet on the floor, and feel the room around you again. And when you're ready, if you have them closed, just to slowly open your eyes and sit quietly for a moment or two. Thank you for watching. I hope you can join me for our next session, which is exploring emotions.